Every complete system of the spirit has 7 parts. As students of anthroposophy know, humans are currently in the 4th large stage of evolution. And because we are only in the 4th stage of evolution, it may be challenging to understand how the 5th through 7th stages may be so incredibly different in dimension and consciousness. The subsequent stages are much more than a reorganization of the elements we experience in the 4th stage or dimension of evolution. That is because the 5th stage, as with all the other stages, synthesizes the previous 4 stages and adds novelty, new creation out of nothingness, into the unfolding septenary cosmology.
The mystery of 7 is found in the great and the small. From the incarnation of our own Earth in its different stages, from Saturn, Sun, and Moon to our stage Earth now, and then the 3 future stages, or whether it be the stages of a monarch butterfly, as it develops and has to have a 4th generation butterfly that can then truly carry on the mission of what the 3 previous stages were all about. Some might call it dimensions. Some would call it elements. Some could call it soul elements. You could describe it in many ways as ethers. For instance, these 4 stages are called warmth ether, light ether, chemical ether or sound ether, and life ether. You could call these the dimensions also. And Steiner gives an entire cosmology based upon the septenary, the 7-fold understanding of the way that everything works, from music to the interpenetrating planets, and the music of the spheres, in our organs, in the cavities of our brain. Everywhere you look, you find the mystery of 7 unfolding. And when you can understand that mystery of 7, you can also understand the developing child from age 7 to 14. That is the perfect archetype of that 7. So we're going to explore all the different ramifications of that in today's presentation.
We are embedded in 7 cycles, within 7 cycles, within 7 cycles. Each of these cycles has a specific aspect of the complete system to contribute. Each cycle, within a greater cycle, has metamorphic and morphological characteristics that work with each of the 7 ethers to manifest one of the 7 planetary characteristics.
Now this seems very complicated, and it is, to have cycles within cycles within cycles. But through anthroposophy and the cosmology given by Rudolf Steiner, you can figure out in great detail the past, the present, and the future. Because in these cycles are implicit what the future cycles will reveal. Because they take what is given from the past and in the present use it in a way that projects into the future that which will become. For instance, in the past cycle of the first incarnation of the Earth called Saturn, the minerals were created, but they weren't created as minerals, they were created as warmth. And for the human being, that element of warmth then becomes the very foundation upon which we walk. It becomes the minerals of this time and this sphere for us. But other times and other spheres interpenetrate us. And so when people speak of dimensions and many, many different dimensions, there are different dimensions according to Rudolf Steiner, but there's a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3 dimension, and then in the 4th dimension, there's a transformation. And that's all that there really is. When you then take the 3rd dimension, it becomes what we would know as the stage 5 of the incarnation of the Earth, or any stage 5 of any of the 7 cycles found anywhere in nature. And then the transformation of 2 dimensions becomes then that which is 6 dimensions, and then 1 dimension becomes the 7th dimension. So Rudolf Steiner says there's 7 dimensions, but he says that there's really only a transformation and really an annihilation of the 3 dimensions that we know. And that comes when we no longer are bound by time and space, and when we can just have consciousness to transform and metamorphose what we would generally call the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, those are actually dimensions of the human being in the past, which can be used to build what the human being will become in the future.
Certain qualities, virtues, and ethers enliven each cycle with new forces of growth and information. Each cycle contributes to the whole and is one with the whole. Each cycle is part of the plan.
This is the beautiful part that is so difficult to understand. Does a butterfly, when it is a seed, and when it is a seed and it's an egg, basically, that has been laid, there's usually 7 lines across the top of that egg, which represent the 7 cycles that the butterfly will go through. But does the butterfly know that it will, or does the seed, the egg, know that it will become a caterpillar, or that the caterpillar will become a cocoon, a chrysalis, or that from that a butterfly would arrive, or that from that 4 more generations would have to be incarnated and go through the cycle of very short lifespans, so that the 4th generation could then live much longer and be able to fly thousands of miles south and then return to the very milkweed plants that it came to life on.
Steiner writes in the book Supersensible Knowledge concerning this topic. Thus we have 7 colors in the rainbow, just as there are 7 notes in the scale and 7 levels of atomic weights in the atomic realm.
From the large to the small, from the atomic, literally looking at the chart of elements, to the rainbow, to the notes in the octave, the scale that we use, to the planets, the major planets that are involved in creating the harmony of the spheres, to the 7 chambers of the heart. Of course, some of those chambers have yet to be found, even though they exist and are just not being used yet. Same thing with the 6th and 7th ether. There is a 5th, 6th, and 7th ether that we can speak about in a minute, but when we're looking at the chambers of the heart, we only know of 4. But there's a chamber around the heart, that's the 5th, and then there are 2 other areoles on top of the chambers, which will, in the future, become new organs of perception. There's 7 chambers in the brain, the ventricles of the brain. There's 7 organs in the rib cage. Everywhere you look, you will find not only beautiful geometry and mathematics that arrive out of these things, but the fractals that arise from 7 actually create so much of what we know as the structure of life. Everywhere you look, it will be the same. You will find 7 stages, and in the stage 1 is implicit all 7 stages, and each of the 7 stages is implicit the entire process. And in the 5th stage, we have what is called the new stage of novelty, the stage where something is born that is new, that is beyond what one might even imagine. That first stage of the butterfly, unimaginable. But there are even further stages of the butterfly that become almost unbelievable for a human being to believe that a butterfly can fly 2,000 miles south and then return 2,000 miles to the very milkweed plant that it was born on. This is what is implied in the human being's etheric body. When we speak of ethers, the ethers are part of the etheric body, and that etheric body shows itself in its most true fashion in a child from age 7 to 14. And that's what Waldorf education is. That's what the eternal curriculum is to teach this cycle of 7, because in it, each of those cycles has the mystery of all of the cycles.
The 7-fold forces of the planets raying into the earth and the human body donate the harmonic music of the spheres as formative forces to build the ethers into cohesive life. This sounding ether is a cosmic mathematics that continually streams living sound into life. Steiner speaks of this as the mathematical proportions of chemistry are really expressions of the mathematical proportions of the music of the spheres, which has become mute by condensing into matter.
They now know, through computer modeling, the true motion of the planets behind the sun as it's moving forward. And it's moving forward at over 600,000 miles an hour. And behind it, it pulls the 7 major planets and the other planets that have joined us from the outer edges of our solar system. But the 7 major planets follow behind the sun. And when you look at the true motion now that we have and a true understanding of what the motion of the planets are, you can see that the harmony of the spheres is very much like what the DNA pattern looks like. And if you stand back a bit, you can see that it's somewhat of an advanced strand of material that looks like DNA. And we now know that you can use sound to actually change human DNA. And the telomeres, the ends of the DNA, can be healed by producing a specific frequency of sound. So when Einstein based everything upon light, he presumed that there was a luminiferous ether. Most people do not realize that. But there's also a soniferous ether, an ether of sound. And this ether of sound brings in the music from the stars and from every direction. And then through the planets, it is formed into not just music, but literally what you might call the lyrics of a song. It is words that are filled with true music that reflect the true harmony of the spheres, the true geometry that is used in the proportions and in the ratios, in the motions between the 7 planets. And that is replicated in the human being and the etheric body. And the etheric body is a mirror of that. So when we are speaking of teaching the child's etheric body, we're talking about aligning it with the cosmos.
This communication between the heavenly and earthly spheres is the source of cohesive life on Earth. The combined forces of the 7 planets, the 7 intervals, the 7 organs, the 7 levels of atomic weights, and the many other complete cycles of 7 found in the human environment are all linked together in a grand symphony of sound that is like music from a heavenly harp of 7 strings. The human constitution is a symphony of beings, sounds, and life that make it an instrument for the gods to play.
We live in this soniferous ether, the sound ether. It's also called the number ether, the valence ether, the atomic ether. It's the very substance that harmoniously allows one element from one atom to be changed and exchanged with another, whether it be a chemical reaction or whether it be an electron with another atom. It is a harmonious changing of love. It is when it is resonant that these harmonies also then have higher frequencies that are resonating with them also on levels of fractals that go all the way into the cosmos. The sounding of the cosmos comes directly into the human heart, and the very beat of the cosmos, the very rhythm that the cosmos is based upon, is the rhythm of the human heart. So what we are doing when we train ourselves to see the ethers, the warmth ether, the light ether, the sound ether, the life ether, and we see it in the child as we're teaching them, and we present the whole world to the child, the mineral world, the plant world, the animal world, the human world, we are presenting them with the entire history of the past of humanity and all of its evolution. And that is imprinted in the etheric body of that child. And the child comes into resonance with the very things we're teaching because it is part of the past that helped build up its etheric body that it now uses for its life. And it is such an honor to be able to watch a child as they're growing in this wondrous world of ethers and making sure that we bring to them the warmth of love to surround them, the light of beautiful imaginations and pictures from all the great world literature that we are presenting to them, that we bring them a world where every day is filled with music, every activity has a rhythm, everything they do is a beautiful harmonic effort of concerted symphonic unity created in between their teacher and their classroom and the children in that classroom and the school. And this is what we're trying to bring forth, is this higher sounding that then brings the word. And the word is the logos. The Word is the true creative power that each child has, and that is their future. So when we can bring the past in the right way and align the child with these 7 cyclic processes that are the magical processes that hold everything together, then we're giving them what they need to become a wisdom child out of this eternal curriculum found in the etheric body.